Hey everybody, and welcome back to the channel. Let me move my mic a little bit closer. And man, oh man, there's been many sleepless nights in the Nintendo household lately with the new baby. But we're finally here. We finally got the baby out, and he is doing great. Mama is doing great. He just likes to eat in the middle of the night, and he wakes everybody up. So I was a bit drowsy this morning. I actually wanted to film this morning. When I say this morning, I mean the day before you're actually watching this. But I was so tired, just so exhausted, and I couldn't get around to filming it. But I'm filming it tonight. Everyone's in bed, sleeping tight. I'm going to be going to bed soon, but I want to film this top. How many do I have? 15 of the Sega Dreamcast games. My top 15 Sega Dreamcast games. They're all great games. We all love the Dreamcast. It was gone before its time. We didn't know what we had until it was gone. Well, I knew what I had because I kept it. You see it right there. But many of you didn't know what you had, and we got rid of it for the PlayStation 2, which is a good system in and of itself. But if you take away the DVD player, this is my hot take. The Dreamcast is a better system. It had better exclusive games, and I don't know, I just like the Dreamcast better than the PlayStation 2. That's my opinion. You might share it, you might not. Let me know in the comments below, but also don't forget to like and subscribe. But without further ado, let's get into that list. All right, coming in at number 15. And so I should preface this. A couple of these are series and not just a single game, because they're all very similar. It's hard to pick one out of the other because they're mostly sports titles. So they just kind of progressively, they get a little bit better as the years go by, and better graphics, things like this. But first up at number 15 is the NHL 2K series. Much like its NFL counterpart, I prefer the 2K hockey series over EA's hockey series. And that's not to trash EA's NHL series, but I just always felt like the 2K series was a little bit better, especially on the Dreamcast, because the triggers are what did your shooting and passing and things like that. It just felt more ergonomically better using the control scheme on the Dreamcast, especially on the Dreamcast controller. For those games than the EA counterparts that were on the PlayStation 2, the GameCube, and later the Xbox. I just like this game overall. I felt the graphics were a little bit better than the EA game, and as well as the frame rate seemed better. That's me. I'd have to go find an old ass copy of NHL for the just for any system. I still have my NHL 2K games. But yeah, I would have to go find to really do a comparison. But I just always preferred those over. And they were just fun hockey games playing. Like I said, the control scheme, the way they were set up, just felt better. It felt more natural. And I felt like I could pull off more dekes, more shots, more wrist shots, things like that. I just felt like I was more all-around hockey player with that game and that control scheme. All right, moving right along. Number 14, again, another series, NFL 2K series. There are still many, many people. This is not a hot take, as the NFL 2K series is better than Madden. I'm one of those people. I think NFL 2K5, the last one in the 2K series, far superior to anything we got with Madden. Now, that is a putting myself back in 2005 kind of mindset, only because I like playing the 2K series on the Dreamcast. I don't have 2K5 anymore, but playing 2K1 through 2, 2K1, 2K2 on the Dreamcast, it takes a little bit getting used to since, it's been 20 years on and we've been playing nothing but Madden. So it does take a little bit getting used to the control screen, but once you get back into it, it plays really well. So at the time of 2005, 2K5 was far superior to any of the Madden offerings. Same with 2K1, 2K2, and 2K, better than their Madden counterparts on other systems. But again, that's in hindsight. And so many people want the 2K series back. And I think I mentioned this in my last video about EA being bought out by the Saudi government, that maybe that will get the NFL to rethink that exclusive license, and maybe 2K will come back into play. Though it's not the same 2K that it was when we got the NFL games. This is now owned by Take-Two, not Sega, and it is very money-grabbing, to say the least, with DLC and other things like that, as many WWE fans and NBA fans know from their 2K game series. But it would be nice to have something to compete with Madden like we used to have. And this was definitely the best of the competitors of Madden. Some say, including myself, say it's better than Madden. And truly one of the best experiences on the 2K series. Shoot, the video game image of Randy Moss was used as one of the mascots for the Dreamcast in a few commercials. So definitely a great game. Sorely missed in the football genre. But if you, like me, you've got a Dreamcast, you can always go back and play the classics. All right, coming in at number 13 is Unreal Tournament. This might be the first like PC style first person shooter I've played, not counting Wolfenstein and the original Doom. I'm talking about like with, using the Unreal Engine, because as we know, back in the day when a new Unreal Engine came out, a new Unreal Tournament came out to showcase the engine. I'd never really played such a fast and frantic first-person multiplayer shooter like Unreal. Like, we all grew up playing GoldenEye 64, things like that, and it was fun. Same with Perfect Dark, but not quite the frantic graphical pace as the Unreal games. And so this was really like the first time I played one of those first-person shooters where you had the big arena multiplayer style, and everyone's just running back and forth, and it was really, you had to get good. It wasn't necessarily a race to find the best weapon, kind of like in GoldenEye to find the rocket launcher, things like that, or know the secret passage. It was really like you had to be good at dodging, jumping, hitting those platforms, things like that. It was a really fun shooter, and I think ahead of its time on consoles, considering the Dreamcast controller, you only had the one thumbstick. You didn't have the dual thumbsticks like you would on modern ones, and just a great, fun shooter to play. All right. Coming in at number 12, I wrote this down as just Sega Bass Fishing, but also Deep Sea Fishing too. So the Sega Fishing series as well. I never had the fishing controller. I still want to get one for my Dreamcast to play those games on the Dreamcast with the fishing controller. But I do have Sega Bass Fishing, and I do have Sega. Is it Sports Fishing? Ocean Fishing? I can't remember. But both are really fun fishing games. I like fishing in real life, and I've always had an affinity for fun arcade style fishing games. It started with Super Black Bass on the Super Nintendo. I remember my buddy had that and played that a lot, and then I remember playing Sega Bass Fishing at the arcade, and I definitely picked it up for my Dreamcast as a game to play. Always meant to get the fishing controller, but it was one of those things. I think the fishing controller was like 30 or 50, like 40 or 50 bucks, and I was like, at the time I was like, I could buy that or I could get another game. And naturally speaking, I bought another game instead of getting a controller to use for one specific game. I bought a whole nother game. But it's just a fun arcade style fishing. You pick your lure, you toss it in, you follow the lure, and just, I don't know, especially for the first time in 3D, seeing that big old bass or whatever fish you're fishing for coming up, seeking your lure, boom, grabbing it, and you hit it, and you got to reel it in. It's a ton of fun. I like even my wife, who doesn't like video games, she enjoys playing that game with me. They're a blast to play, and they're kind of pick up and play kind of thing like that. If you just got like 10, 15 minutes of gaming time and then you want to play something, you can throw that in there, play it real quick, and it is a blast to play. So definitely check that one out if you've never played it. Coming in at number 11, this one I actually had ranked higher, and I knocked it down as I was coming up with this list. But it's a sequel to one of my favorite game series out there, and we talked about the series in our spooky games. But number 11, Resident Evil Code Veronica. A lot of people feel this should be Resident Evil number 4. Because it feels like a mainline Resident Evil. It doesn't feel like some of the offshoots that it has. But, we follow Claire Renfield, Chris's sister, not Jill's sister, as she goes off on her own thing, tracking down Wesker and things like that. So I was kind of one of those things. I think they had an idea of where they wanted to go with the Resident Evil series, so this is why this was an offshoot, because I think they wanted the main series maybe to follow Jill or Chris, be in Raccoon City or somewhere like that. Where did Code Veronica go? Germany? I can't remember Code Veronica. It's been almost 30 years since I played Code Veronica, so pardon me for not remember all the plots. But much like what we got for Resident Evil 4, it doesn't take place in the US. It feels like an offshoot, not following the main Resident Evil zombie kind of storyline. But they did make 4, where a lot of fans feel like Code Veronica should be 4, and then maybe Leon's Adventure in Spain could be 5, kind of thing like that. But those are semantics. It's a fun game, and kind of, I would say, a lost gem, like an underrated game. You don't hear a lot of people talk about Code Veronica unless they are like diehard Resident Evil fans. And that's why it's going to hold steady at number 11 on this countdown list. All right, and coming in at number 10, this game released on multiple systems, and I think the definitive and best edition of it was on the Dreamcast, and that is Activision, produced by Neversoft. No, not that game, but the Spider-Man game. That game was so much fun, and as great as the Insomniac, is it Insomniac? Yeah, Insomniac Spider-Man games are. This one, the Spider-Man one that came out from Activision, still holds a special place in my heart, kind of thing like that. And I'm sure the control schemes and everything like that are better on the PlayStation 4 or 5 version of Spider-Man from Insomniac. But again, much like the NHL 2K series, the controls just felt right on this. And for the time, the 3D graphics looked great. And especially on the Dreamcast, there was less draw distance, less fog like there was on the PlayStation version or the N64 version. I think that's all the versions of the first Spider-Man game that came out. So, but obviously, you know, the Dreamcast is more powerful than the N64, more powerful than the PlayStation. So it should play and look better, which it did. And, you know, its sequel, Spider-Man 2, was fantastic as well. But this one kind of showed us that comic book video games could be really good. Because for the most part, the ones we got were like mostly just okay side-scrolling beat-em-ups. And that's like at their best, they were okay side-scrolling beat-em-ups. Most of them were pretty terrible games, to say the least. Like, just go look at Angry Video Game Nerds YouTube channel, and you'll see so many just angry reviews about side-scrolling comic book video games. And so this one might have been the first one in 3D. Don't quote me on that. You know, because Superman on the N64 might have predated this one. But it definitely showed us that comic book games could be fantastic, and it was definitely fantastic. And, you know, just so many nice things to say about this game. If you look back on it, it doesn't look that great. It looks very polygony, and, you know, Spider-Man doesn't have the black webbing on his suit. It's just red and blue, much like almost every Spider-Man video game before that. But it had a great training level. And the funny thing is, I know I'm misremembering. I'm thinking of the Activision movie tie-in games, which were also great. But I want to say Bruce Campbell did the training, and I know he did the training in the movie games, but I think the training in the Activision games was narrated by Stan Lee. Again, correct me in the comments. I could have looked this up, but I don't feel like it. But I'm pretty sure the training was done by Stan Lee, but my mind wants to say it was Bruce Campbell, but I know that's the movie version and not this one. Also, kind of sadly, there was like 2 screenshots of it that I saw on EGM, but Neversoft and Activision were working on a Daredevil 3D game, and I think Did You Know Gaming, I think they did either they did a whole video about it, or it was in like one of the things in one of their videos, but like there was like a prototype of a Daredevil game, and they were going to use like almost like Detective Vision from the Batman Arkham games in a sense to recreate his blindness and things like that. And as a huge Daredevil fan, I would have loved a Daredevil, just a Daredevil game. I don't know if we've gotten a Daredevil game. I don't think we have. But a Daredevil game in general, but a Daredevil game in the style of that Activision Spider-Man would have been really cool. But yes, number 10 is Spider-Man from Activision and Neversoft. And before we fall into 9 through 8, I just want to plug, coming soon, we're going to have selling merch. You guys have seen me wearing the Nintendo hat. We're going to have shirts and things like that, but I want to show off some of the stickers we have. Since we're talking about Dreamcast, let's talk about the Nintendo Dadcast logo sticker. Things like that. And because, you know, I'm obsessed with Japan, we've got logos from Japan konbinis. We got the 7-Eleven one's right there. We've got Family Mart, Nintendo. We've got Lawson's, Super Nintendo. And, you know, just the regular old Nintendo logo, Nintendo 64 right there in sticker form. And that's just another Family Mart style Nintendo sticker. So we got stickers, we've got hats, we've got a merch store coming very soon to the channel. We're probably going to launch it at the end of this month into November. kind of thing. So yeah, we got merch coming. It's gonna be fun. Just a way to help support the channel if you want. So let me know in the comments below what kind of merch you're looking for. Like I said, we've got t-shirts coming, hats, hoodies. I've got a hoodie. It's just not cool enough to wear it right now. That to show off and things like that. But now we're getting into the top 10. Coming in at number 9, Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2 for the Dreamcast. I could pick either one, but kind of 1 and 2, that's why I'm glad like the remakes were both of them. Those are my 2 favorite Tony Hawk games, and I can kind of play them back to back. Though 2 has the better control scheme. You can do the balancing, the manuals, and things like that you couldn't do in the first one. But yeah, Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2 for the Dreamcast. Again, until, I would say probably the Xbox version, the 2X was the definitive version of those two, but until we got the remasters, I would say like the Dreamcast version was the definitive because again, it was only competing with the N64 and the PlayStation at the time. Superior machine, get better frame rate, better graphics, better draw distancing, things like that. And the D-pad on the Dreamcast controller actually made doing the tricks a little bit easier than the D-pads on the N64 controller and on the PlayStation controller, especially I just like that big beefier controller. Just made it more fun to play, and I probably had more fun playing it on that system than I did on the PlayStation on the N64. But like I said, just the better software makes for the more definitive version of the game. Plus, Tony Hawk Pro Skater, I could have made it actually go up a little bit just because that soundtrack alone is phenomenal. But it's starting in the lower part of the top 10, coming in at number 9. And number 8, we're kind of on the same extreme sports level, but Jet Grind Radio, Jet Set Radio, whatever you want to call it, depending on whether you're from Japan, from America, or also if you first played it on the Xbox. But Jet Set Radio is, for one, the cel-shaded graphics. If it's not the first cel-shaded graphics 3D game, it's the one that popularized that look. I remember seeing it in EGM, in Dreamcast magazine, or whatever the Dreamcast magazine was in the US. I want to say it was called Dreamcast magazine, but I could be misremembering. I remember just like seeing it for the first time and then playing the demo. I was taken aback by how cool this looked because, again, I was young. I was 99, so I was 16 when the Dreamcast came out and 15 when it was coming out, when it was announced. You kind of have this naivety about you, like, oh, graphics aren't going to... There was a time I thought graphics weren't going to get better than the N64, and then the Dreamcast got announced. And I do remember, kind of sidetracking for a second, I do remember the first time I saw anything about the Dreamcast. It was in an EGM, and I read it on a plane. I can't remember where we were flying. Given that I was 16, we were probably flying to Louisiana or Florida for competitions for sports and things like that. So Junior Olympics, kind of thing like that. So it was one of those two. But I remember I picked up an EGM at one of the airport magazine stands, and the Dreamcast was on the cover. I was like, what is this from Sega? And I think that's something I probably should have mentioned at the top of this countdown. But Jet Set Radio was one of the ones previewed. And I was like, whoa. And it just kind of blew my mind, the graphics in that, and how much like a hand-drawn cartoon it looked at the time. And then you get the game, and it's about tagging New Tokyo. And I credit this game as one of those things that gave me that young fascination with wanting to go to Japan one day. Because yes, it's kind of a fictional version of Shibuya and Akihabara and things like that, but it still kind of like planted that seed in my mind. And then the rollerblading aspect, because you're not only just tagging places with the graffiti, but you're pulling off tricks and doing cool things while playing the game. So it's just a blast. I can't wait for either the sequel or remake, whatever Sega's doing with that they announced, I think, last year. I can't wait to see what they do with that. In fact, like, I don't even need like a new game, but just like an updated remaster for modern systems I would kill for that right now. Such a fun game. If you haven't played it, if you've got a Dreamcast, you can play it there. Or it came out on the Xbox, which I don't know if it's backwards compatible. But if you've got an Xbox also, you can play the more for once, the definitive edition is not the Dreamcast version, but the definitive version is the Xbox version. I don't think it came out for the GameCube or the PlayStation 2. I think It was just an Xbox exclusive once the Dreamcast died. But if you have a chance to play that game, I definitely recommend it. In fact, I should say, I don't think I filmed it at all, but while Keenan and I were in Osaka, we went to that retro video game bar, and this was one of the games I played at the bar, because where we got seated at the bar, we had a Dreamcast to play. And that's one of the games I threw in there because it's one of my all-time favorites. And Keenan, who had never seen it before, thought it was a really cool game. All right, coming in at number 7, a game that was far ahead of its time, and I would say probably inspired games like Grand Theft Auto, Saints Row, and other big-time realistic open-world games. And this game is Shenmue. Time, in my estimation, has not been kind to Shenmue. It's one of those games that it was really cool at the time because it's like, oh, it's an open world, kind of. And, supposedly whatever the weather was in Tokyo, and I think the game took place in 1986, time and date in 1986, the game replicated that. I don't know if that was ever proven to be true or false. But also, like, it worked on real time. So it operated on the your Dreamcast clock. So it's like if someone was like, oh, I'll meet you at 8 a.m. and it was like 2 p.m. the previous day, you literally, or well, let's just say 8 p.m. the previous day, you literally had to wait 12 hours to play. So you'd have to come back and, wait for 12 hours. And you would just, kind of the downside to that game was you would have to find busy work while waiting to meet people or meet somebody at a place in the game. So it was kind of ahead of its time in what it was trying to accomplish. But the downside to that was there was a lot of dead time in that game, like in real life, while waiting for events to occur. One of my favorite things to do in the game was get money and go buy little Sega gachapons or play Sega arcade games, much like you do in the Yakuza Like a Dragon series, which, Shenmue, almost kind of a precursor to those games as well, kind of thing. So I feel this game inspired a lot of games that would later do what it was trying to set up to do much better. As seen by like Shenmue 3, a lot of fans, I didn't even bother with that. I don't even think I played Shenmue 2. I did really love and appreciate Shenmue, but I never finished it. Like I said, because of the way it worked with the clock and time and things like that, I was just like, I don't have time for this. I've got, at that point, I was junior or senior in high school, and I was like, I've got things to do, play sports, go to a job. I don't have time to dedicate to a game like this. Little did I know that was just a precursor to adulthood, and I'd have even less time to do games like that. But it was ahead of its time, and like I said, I feel it inspired a lot of games that we love now. So obviously, even though it wasn't the best game, it deserves a place in the top 10 at number 7 on this list. Coming in at number 6, we have maybe the weirdest game on this list, a game I'm still playing today and I streamed a couple months ago. In fact, with the birth of my son, they might all be dead now because I haven't played the game in like a week. And I'm going to do it after I get off filming this, just to check on them and feed them and set the temperature and oxygen in the aquarium. And that, of course, I'm talking about Caution Seaman. It's a very unusual virtual pet game. You're raising a fish that has the face of a man, and he talks shit to you, and he asks you questions, and he speaks, and he does all this stuff. You have to feed him. You have to raise bugs to feed him. It's a very eccentric, cool, weird, awesome, just any adjective you want to throw at it, that would fit this game. And also, it's narrated by Leonard Nimoy, which is really cool. But yeah, the game, you have to use the Dreamcast microphone. It uses the internal clock on the Dreamcast. And the Seaman will talk to you, and you can answer his questions and talk to him. Obviously, it's kind of limited because it's a Dreamcast game and not a more modern game with AI. But it is kind of fun, and you kind of have a conversation with Seaman. And he asks you all these questions, and it's kind of fun questions that he can ask. And it almost makes me want to play through the game again because he'll ask you if you have a girlfriend or boyfriend, if you're married, things like that. And one of the funny things was, like, he asked me if I was married. I said yes. He says, do you love your wife? And the answer to that, of course, is yes. But then I was like, I should have said no, because I'm kind of wondering, because it's like, he gives you like, oh, it's good to love your wife or something like that when you answer yes. And I'm like, what would he have said if I said no? Like, what would his response been? So it's one of those things that it gives you replayability with some of the questions he asks, because you like, if you answer them honestly, you kind of like, you gave, especially if like the honest answer is like the moral answer, like, do you love your wife? Yes. Would you cheat on your wife? No. It's like, what would he say if I said the immoral thing, like I don't love my significant other or I'm cheating on them or something like that? What would his response be? Because he's a very snarky individual. So it's kind of one of those things I kind of want to go back, like after this round's done, play it again and answer a lot of these questions differently to see his response. So it's a fun game, and definitely not being a teenager anymore, I appreciate it. I thought it was cool when I was a teenager, but as an adult, I kind of appreciate it and like it more. It's got more fun things to do, and you can kind of dedicate yourself, because as a teenager, I was like, this is it. This is all I can do with this game. Just wait for him to ask me questions. But as an adult, I can pop it in, set the temperature, do everything I need to do, the housekeeping stuff, and then wait for him to ask me a question while I'm doing something else, like editing a video, things like that. Talk to him, edit more videos, and come back and like, all right, we're done with C-Man. We'll save it, and we'll come back later, kind of thing like that. So it's more of a fun game for an adult, I think, than a teenager. But it's kind of a blast and a really cool game in and of itself. So I definitely recommend C-Man for your Dreamcast experience. And that is number 6 on our list. So before we move on to number 5, I do have some horrible news. After that last entry, I decided to check on my C-Man because it's been a week and the baby was born and I forgot to check on him. Leonard Nimoy informed me that he had passed away. So, let us have a moment of silence for my C-Man named Steve. You will be missed, Steve. All right. Yeah, that sucks. I don't know if I'm going to start back up and play again, but I did say I wanted to play again and see how he would answer my, or how my answers to his other questions would work out. So maybe I'll start it up again later, not anytime soon. I got other games to play. But that's a bummer. But moving along. So number 5 is another series. It's a racing series. And again, 1 and 2 are very similar, and 2 kind of builds on what was good about 1. And in fact, we're getting a new entry in it, just announced at the Tokyo Game Show. And that series is Tokyo Extreme Racing. I want to say this was my first toe dip into 3D racers. Like I had played, Outrun, RC, Mario Kart. Mario Kart's not a real racer, but like, legit like arcade / simulation style racing where you could upgrade your cars and do all this thing. I want to say this was like my entry into that game. And, since then I've played Gran Turismo, Forza Horizons, the Burnout series, countless other racing games. But the Tokyo Extreme Racing was just really cool. And if you've never played that game before, and I have streamed it before, I'll probably stream it again. It's a lot of fun. Basically, you pick your car and you can buy other cars, things like that, and you can upgrade your car and you just drive around, the cities of Japan. I think it's called Tokyo Extreme Racing. I think it's mostly Tokyo. I think later in the game you can go to other parts like Osaka and things like that. I don't remember, because when I have played it more recently, I've just kind of milled around with it and not really, gone too in depth with it. But yeah, you just drive around and you flash your lights at other racers and challenge them to race, and then you kind of race the course on the highways and things like that. The game will like create a course for you, or other racers can come up from behind and challenge you, and you can accept or not accept their challenge and just continue to drive around. It's a really fun game and a really cool concept that delves into, for what I can only assume at the time in the mid to late 90s, the Japanese underground racing scene. And in fact, there's a huge warning about don't race in real life, kind of thing at the start of the game, probably so they don't get sued. And but yeah, it's such a fun game. And with the new one being announced, I think it's going to PC first and then console, because I think it's coming to Steam first. But I'm really, really interested in to see, and I haven't even looked at a trailer yet of the new one, but I'm really interested to see how much like the original it is. I'm sure what I would like for with that one, again, without having seen it, were to be, basically a prettier remaster version of Tokyo Extreme Racing 2. I would much prefer it to have like the 80s to 90s, JDM cars, just because those are more iconic than anything that probably came after, 2000, 2001. So, your Skylines, your Supras, your Evos of that era, things like that. I can't really say like, some of the Japanese car makers have tried to make, newer versions of those iconic cars, but they don't really feel the same. I would say the only one that still has that JDM feel to it is the Mazda Miata, the MX-5. The other ones just kind of feel hollow and not as, tuner like the other one. So that would be kind of my hope for the new Tokyo Extreme Racing, to be like a remaster of 2, where we're just using the classic JDM cars, which, kind of ironically, at the time when this game came out, were current JDM cars. But that should be cool. But yeah, like I said, this game is just fantastic. It was one of my first toe dips into, the more simulation, arcade, mashup style games where you can kind of pick up and play and have fun and win races. But if you really get serious into the tuning of the car, what cars you pick, your driving style, and things like that, it can really hit close to a simulation style racer. And it's a lot of fun. And if you're a gearhead like me, or I actually prefer the British way of saying it, petrol head, like myself, and you, especially if you like JDM cars, it's the perfect game for you. Definitely check it out if you've got a Dreamcast. Though I do think 2 came out on the PlayStation 2, if I remember correctly. Not sure about the Xbox, but I'm pretty sure Tokyo Extreme Racing 2 did come out on the PlayStation 2. But yep, that is number 5, Tokyo Extreme Racing. And number 4, I think every teenage boy owned this game for their Dreamcast, mostly because of Kasumi, but that is Dead or Alive 2. This, much like Tokyo Extreme Racing before that, was my first foray into 3D fighters. Of course, there's Tekken and Soul Calibur around the same time, but I didn't really have those because, Tekken kind of came in with the PlayStation. Soul Calibur 1, I think, PlayStation as well, and 2 was out on the Dreamcast. But I want to say it came out after DOA 2. Don't quote me on that, though. But DOA 2, I know, came out, if it wasn't a launch game for the Dreamcast, it was right there at launch. And I think a lot of us, we either played the demo of it and then picked it up, or just picked it up because of the jiggle effects, which a lot of us teenage boys bought it for. But, outside of, because, it just became a girls in bikini volleyball series after that. But outside of the goonerificness of that game, it was a really cool and deep 3D fighter. In fact, because I played Tekken, I played Soul Calibur, and I played this at the time, and including Street Fighter EX plus Alpha. This was my favorite of those 3D fighters. There's a 3D fighter I like better than this. We'll get to it. But of all of those, I really like this. I like the parry system, the dodge system, the counters, the juggling. There's a lot of things to really enjoy about this game. In fact, it's one of those fighters that I really enjoyed the nonsensical story that it had, that I also went through and played. I beat the game with multiple characters to see the endings, to see how because another cool thing about this game, and Tekken could have done this as well, but I'm not as well versed in Tekken as I am Dead or Alive. But when characters had rivals, and when you would face them in the story mode, they would have a different cutscene than other characters would, or you would have with other characters. When you face your rival, it'd be like a story cutscene, things like that. And I thought that was really cool and made the game even more enjoyable. But yeah, jiggle effects aside, which is what they are called, I'm not even making that up. DOA 2 was a very fun and deep fighter, and in fact had Ryo Hayabusa from the Ninja Gaiden series, which the success of the Dead or Alive series got us the Ninja Gaiden Black series too. So not only did we get a spin-off of bikini volleyball games, but we also got the Ninja Gaiden series. So we got 2 really good game series out of that. And Dead or Alive, got to its 6th entry, which was free to play, and you buy all the crap for it afterwards. I don't know if it's still going on or not, if it's been shut down. I downloaded it when it came out, and I was like, I'm just not into fight. Pretty much like whenever I get a new fighter, I'm just like, I'm not really into fighters anymore, and didn't really play it after the initial download. But it does hold a special place in my heart. Still one of my all-time favorite fighting games out there, and that's why it's number 4 on this Dreamcast list. All right, number 3 might have helped the Dreamcast if it was a pack-in title with the game, but again, came out at launch. A lot of people bought it, and it probably became a pack-in title later on. But Sonic Adventures, our first real 3D Sonic game, because we did have, I think it was called Sonic 3D on the Saturn, Sega CD, one of those two. But it was very janky, and it was kind of an isometric 3D game. It was not really, it was kind of top-down kind of thing like that. Not great. Sonic Adventures, took some stuff from Mario 64, and I'm not going to say improved on it. Did make it faster and a little sharper graphics because it was on the Dreamcast. But that first, we all played the demo. We played the first level where you're on the beach. You're doing all the loop-de-loops, and it's almost like an endless runner because you're not really doing much because you keep hitting the turbo pads, but you're running from the orcas, destroying the dock and things like that. And that was the perfect game to show off what the Dreamcast could do. And honestly, I think, had Sega done that as a pack-in title with the Dreamcast, they might have sold more Dreamcast 2 before the PlayStation 2 came into the US and dominated it because it had a DVD player. But it was just the perfect game to show off everything the Dreamcast could do. It used the VMUs, it used the internal clock, it used the clock in the VMUs, it used the trading, you do the chow thing. So it did everything that the Dreamcast could do. So if it would have been a pack-in title, I think it would have helped sell more Dreamcast and sell more, VMU memory cards. I think the only thing it didn't use was the microphone. So yeah, fantastic game. Much like Sonic did for the Sega Genesis, it really showed off what the hardware could do. And Sega of America was smart with the Genesis. They packed it in. They took the loss on selling the game there, but they're like, we pack it in with the system. We'll sell systems because people want to play this game. Sega should have done that with the Dreamcast as well. All right, so moving in. So 2 and 1 are both Capcom games. Capcom owns 3 spots on this list, more than any other. I guess Sega with the 2K series. Sega owns the most for published games. But coming in at number 2, the only 3D fighter I like more than Dead or Alive 2 from that era at the very least, and that is Power Stone, or you could say Power Stone 2 too. But I didn't own Power Stone 2. I just owned Power Stone. I played the hell out of that. I loved it. It was a 3D fighter. You're in an arena, kind of like a 3D fighter beat 'em up in a sense of the way it played. And then you had the titular Power Stones that you had to gather, and once you did, you kind of went Super Saiyan mode. You got superpowers and stuff like that, and then knocking your opponent around would knock the stones out of their possession and things like that, and then you could pick up the stones. I think it was 3 stones. I do have the Capcom Fighting Collection Series 2, but I haven't gotten around to playing it yet, and one of the main reasons why I bought it, Power Stone 1 and 2 are on that game, because I wanted to buy Power Stone for my Dreamcast, but that's like $80-$90. So getting that collection for $30 and getting both games instead of having to pay $80-$90 and like $150 for both those games, definitely a steal there. But yeah, you just run around in a 3D beat 'em up arena, get the stones, and knock out your opponent, things like that. Just a really cool, and also what it did, up to 4 players could play. So it was like an arena battle with 4 players. So almost like closer to like a wrestling game in a sense than an actual fighter, the way you played it. It was just a lot of fun. My buddies and I really enjoyed playing it. This was probably, except for the number 1 entry, probably the Dreamcast game we played together the most. In fact, it started with one of the demo discs. We played the hell out of just one level, and like maybe the 4 characters you could select from the demo. We played the hell out of the demo disc, which is why we ended up buying the game, because we played so much of the demo. Why not get the full game at that point? But Power Stone is just one of those games, so much fun to play. I have so many fond memories, and I really do need to play that collection on my Switch too, so I can relive some of those memories and play through that game one more time. All right, number 1 on this list. It's also a part of a fighting collection Capcom released in the last year, and if you watched my live stream of that Nintendo Direct, where we were informed that it was coming out, and how excited I got, and excited a lot of people got, but Marvel vs. Capcom 2. Much like Power Stone, one of those games kind of locked behind very expensive reselling of the Dreamcast, PlayStation 2, and Xbox versions of the game. I stand by the Dreamcast being the best version of the game. I've played all 3. Though I do have Japanese versions of the PlayStation 2 and the Dreamcast versions over there on my Marvel vs. Capcom shelf, which is not lit up. And it is right there. You see Ken doing the Hadouken right there. But I do have that. And for the longest time, I was playing the Japanese version on my Dreamcast, which was fun enough to play. But what sucked about the Japanese version as compared to the American version, so the Japanese version, you had to earn currency. Well, much like the American version, you had to earn currency playing the game to unlock characters, unlock costumes, and things like that. The Japanese version, what does not make it timeless like the American version, probably why it's also a lot cheaper than the American version. You had to take your VMU to the arcades and play with your VMU at the arcade to earn a certain kind of currency to buy certain characters. So certain characters were locked behind playing at the arcade, and I was like, shit, I'm never going to earn, I think Mega Man was one of them. I'm never going to get Mega Man, which was one of my mains, because, you know, even though I go to Japan, I guarantee anytime I find Marvel vs. Capcom 2, it's not going to be on an original arcade. It's going to be one of those Astro arcades, and I can't use my VMU on that. But luckily, there is a disc that Capcom made that has like all the unlocks for like all their fighter games for Japanese versions that you can get and put it to your memory card. So I was able to do that, and I paid like $40 for that to import that disc. And I kid you not, like a month after I imported that and got all the save files, they announced the re-release of the Marvel vs. Capcom Fighting Collection. I was like, of course, after I bought this, it would come out. But one nice thing, I will say one downside to the re-release version over the American original Dreamcast version is the re-release version is the arcade version and everything's already unlocked. Where the Dreamcast version, it gives you that replayability. It's because like, all right, I got to play more because I got to earn that currency and it's earn currency, not buy currency. I got to earn that currency to unlock these characters that I want to play as or unlock these costumes, things like that. And that always kind of gets you playing more. So, but yes, that is the end of this countdown. The top 15, my top 15 Dreamcast games of all time. So we'll recap real quick. And of course, in the comments below, I do want to hear your top 10, top 5, top 3, whatever you want to do. Just let me know some of your top Dreamcast games. But coming in at 15, the NHL 2K series. Number 14, the NFL 2K series. And you know what? I'm going to stop right there because you might be saying, Josh, why isn't the NBA 2K series on here? And I will tell you why. I'm still bitter at that game. I was whooping a buddy of mine in that game at a Best Buy. They had on demo. And I want to say he was playing as the Lakers. Whoever Vlade Divac was playing for around 2000, 2001. Vlade Divac, for those of you who don't know, was a giant European center. Couldn't shoot for shit, kind of like Shaq. He got rebounds and he dunked the ball. He just started raining threes with Vlade Divac in that game to come back and beat me. And there was nothing I could do about it because nobody on my team was tall enough to block him or anything like that. And he would just shoot these threes with Vlade Divac like Vlade Divac was Steph Curry. So that is why the NBA 2K series is not on this list. But picking back up, 13, Unreal Tournament. 12, Sega Bass Fishing. 11, Resident Evil Code Veronica. 10, Spider-Man by Activision. I almost said Insomniac Games. Number 9, Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2. But if we're going to get just limited to one game, it's Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2. Number 8, Jet Set Radio. Number 7, Shenmue. Number 6, Caution Seaman. And again, a moment of silence for my Seaman Steve, who had passed away over the weekend. All right, number 5, Tokyo Extreme Racing 1 and 2. Number 4, Dead or Alive 2. Number 3, Sonic Adventures. Number 2, Power Stone. And number 1, Marvel vs. Capcom DOS. So that is my top 15 Dreamcast games. Let me know what yours are in the comments below. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.